Hi everyone and welcome to a new tutorial. On this particular one I want to focus again on Serum 2, but I want to talk about one of the engines within Serum, which is the Spectral engine, which I feel is overlooked a little bit, and I feel that the creative possibilities with that is insane. So I'm going to be showing you how to create some kind of sci-fi textures and sound effects. I might be even looking into creating like a kind of like a spaceship engine kind of sound, and also some kind of texture that could work in the context of a drum bass track. So let's get started. Right, so as you can see here, I've got this project. This is what it sounds like at the moment. Right. Just to give you an idea, that's the sort of idea I've got, and I want to use Serum to create some interesting textures. So I'm going to show you some examples of the kind of sound I'm going for. Like engine kind of sounds, something like this. This is another example. For example, in terms of pad, there is this one here called Isolated Dunes, which is this one here. So first things first, let's create like a texture type sound. And what I'm going to do is just going to go to the Spectral. So what the Spectral actually does, it analyzes the audio in what is known as FFT. It basically sort of like finds the audio and finds individual kind of like parcels, individual signs of the audio. And then you can play them at different speeds and you can recombine them in crazy ways. So let's go over here for a kind of like a texture type sound. Something that sounds slightly melodic could work. Obviously, as we know, we got the factory sounds here, so we can go to something like a piano. So, I mean, this is okay. This spatial as well, so we can try some of these pad sounds. This is an interesting one to work with because it's got a lot of movement. There you go. Already sounds cool anyway. So another thing that we can do is here, we can just set that to manual. So basically means that the position, instead of like traveling through the sample, you can actually freeze that in place and you can move it around. And straight away you can hear this really lovely texture, right? So straight away it sounds interesting. Let's just play with the envelopes and let's add a little bit more release. Potentially add a little bit of attack, so it sounds a little bit more exciting, more like a pad, right? Let's bring up. Right, that sounds lovely, but I want to have a little bit of movement in this. I find that when you're creating pads, it works better to kind of play the sounds in reverse. You see, so you got maybe this one. Okay, let's go. So like that, that's got some momentum to it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the envelope too, because it's just the fastest one to just kind of like work with. And with this, we can sort of like set it so it plays in reverse. Already sounding really, really nice. So we could potentially, I don't know, let's press play. So I've got the pads here, so let's just move it so it sounds good. Just something to work with. So it's not just, you know, one of the things I really heard about sound design is having to play the keyboard at the same time as I'm designing sounds. And I would advise you guys to not do that, because it just literally like just makes it so much harder, right? So let's have a listen again. Yeah, Sounds good. Obviously the sound is exciting, right? So you can see it traveling. Let's just zoom in a little bit. So what else can we do on this sound? We can add harmonics. So two things that I'm going to suggest you to explore. So this, the Spectral, has got its own warping algorithm. Well, I call it warping algorithms, but it's like different ways that the combined parcels that they have been analyzed from the sample, right? The combined signs can be recomposed and rearranged. And there's so many cool things that you can do. So one thing that can be really, really effective is adding subharmonics to the sound. And that's going to give us a much thicker kind of sound. So we're going to add harmonics. It's basically copying the harmonics here and just pasting them below. So it's a much bigger sound already, right? And the other thing that can be quite experimental and abstract and cool could be to add extra harmonics on the sound, and that's going to basically stack them up above it, and it creates the sound almost like, I don't know if you guys have heard of this reverb where the pitch goes up. So you can get some really, it's the shimmer reverb, right? That sort of shimmering sound, and that can be really creative. But I think in order to get the sound sounding a little bit more interesting, it's good to have movement on this, right? So it's not static. I think the subharmonic is okay as it is. I mean, potentially I could use the same thing as the sound progresses, maybe start. No, I think I want it to go from low to more harmonics. There you go. So it gets fuller. And the harmonics that I'm adding here, let's maybe try the same envelope just for now. I mean, this is exploratory, as you know. Let's see what happens if we add extra upper harmonics onto the sound. You see them appearing there. That's cool, right? It gets a little bit intense. And there's one little trick that not that many people know, or they don't really fully explore, and this is the filter. And the filter is really, really, really nice because obviously we can basically reshape the filter here. So we can basically filter the sound itself. We can take some of the parcels down. You can see it. Look. So if I don't like so much of that energy, I can like literally add a node there, and I can just kind of bring them down. So we hear more of the high parcels. I can bring those and maybe overemphasize those. Right. If I want it to emphasize more of the lows, I can do that too, of course. So this is amazing on its own because you can get so many different permutations and really, really cool ways of kind of like really control the sound. You can see the before and after, which is lovely. But the other thing as well that is worth exploring is the fact that you can actually use the wavetable shapes as a filter, and this gives us a completely different result. And it can also be, it's really amazing if the sound has got this kind of like movement to it, right? So it's not static. Check this out. So let's explore. I find the digital one's been really, really, really interesting. So I'm just gonna roll with that. Just gonna go with this one here. Kind of sounds like phasing in a sense, but I really like the sound of that. And again, maybe like I'm gonna take this one here and just add some movement that way. Again, I'm just using the envelopes. I'm just being a bit lazy, so bear with me. There you go. Massive difference, right? So if I take that off, that's the original sound. That's with the filter. There you go. Amazing. And this is just only the start. Of course, you can play around with different samples, switching it up, and there's much more that we can do with this. And yeah, we do have the power of the wavetables anyway, so potentially we can layer, or we can change to Spectral and get another sample. That can also be quite cool as well. If you wanted to do that, you can just say copy with mods, and then put oscillator B there and paste it, and then literally play them at the same time. But this one here, you can maybe try a different sample that works along with it. You see? Let's turn this off so you can hear oscillator B. Let's bring the level down on this one, on oscillator A. There you go, right? So this is exploratory and it's so cool because it remembers all the automation that you've done. There. Nice. And then, of course, if you feel adventurous, you can even add a sub underneath it. Let's maybe go -1. -2, actually. Let's add some effects just to tighten it up. And again, this is so cool, right? Just the fact that you can just copy everything and then just literally replace the sample and add another layer just to add more complexity. We can add noise as well if you liked. So yeah, you know, I could potentially add like one of the new noises which I really like. I particularly like this HP12 pink noise. It's just pink noise that's been filtered, and then you can see that I can add a little bit of that. Or I can modulate the volume of the noise with one of the oscillators so it sounds a little bit more natural. Check this out. I'm going to go here and I'm going to select oscillator maybe A and modulate the volume here, and let's go to the matrix right there, and let's just scroll down and you can see I'm controlling the noise level. There you go. Bring it up a little bit more. There, look. And if you wanted to take it up a notch still, and then here, as you can see, I'm just playing, right? I'm just having a little bit of fun. I'm freestyling almost, isn't it? Because that's the nature of these kind of tools. Is a bit, you know, sound design is exploratory and it's loads of fun. So let me just move here so you can see a little bit better. So if you have a look at oscillator C, there's another thing I want to show you just very quickly that can be equally as cool. All right, so that's soloed without the drum so we can hear it. Right. There you go, right? So that's playing that note, right? But what we can also do, that's really, really nice, is of course we can add unison. And this is one thing that blew my mind a little bit. So that's detuning the sounds, right? But that's not very musical. But if we go to the detune and we got the range and we can do the maximum range, which is 48 semitones range, you can actually create some chords. Look, if when you detune it, eventually becomes a chord. And that works with 3 voices. If you add more than 3 voices, that sounds wrong. I'm just going to blend them together. Look, let's have a listen to what that sounds like on its own. So let me just say that so you can hear oscillator C, right? And let's make it so it doesn't open up in stereo. I want it to be centered, right? So the width, I'm going to set that width to 0. Or maybe, yeah, 0. And let's open the detuning. You're going to hear it straight away. Look. There you go. Really cool. And then I could layer it, and of course I have to tune it perfectly. Let's bring it up a little bit. Play around with that. Yeah, there you go, that's it. Let's add a little bit of width. Nice. And let's not forget about the mighty powerful, I was going to say, the insanely powerful LFOs in Serum. So one thing I like to suggest is to use sample and hold, but use the smooth mode in sample and hold. And if we go back to the oscillator I just added here, I'm going to make it so we got smooth interpolation, right? So it's nice and smooth, like it changes from this waveform to the next. Let's just hear that on its own. And one thing I tend to do is I tend to add movement to everything. That's the sound we got at the moment. Right, so that's kind of stable at the moment. But if we use LFO1 and we map it to the wavetable position and we just do it very subtly, you can see it sort of doing this thing and moving. Maybe not so much, that's too much movement, right? So you have to be... Yeah, that's better. And remember, it's smooth, right? Otherwise it's going to sound jumpy. Right, so the smooth, it kind of makes it into like what Ableton calls like a wanderer, right? In Ableton talk. So it's a wanderer, and instead of like a sample on hold kind of random LFO. And this can be applied as well to the position maybe on this as well. So we can have a little bit of nuance onto this and a little bit of nuance onto that as well. So we got a little bit more movement. Again, subtle is key with this. And then you can tighten it all up. Obviously it's quite loud, as you can see there, so obviously we'll have to watch out with the levels. We got a mixer, so we can always compensate, right? Just to sort of get the mix quite balanced. That noise is a bit loud. There you go, right? So this is one thing that's extremely powerful, the fact that you can kind of mix it. So you try to avoid clipping. This oscillator is going a bit crazy. Let's rebalance it. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, so it's not so pan to the left. And just to kind of like tighten it all up, I'm going to use a compressor. And I'm going to use the multi-band compression here, just the classic OTT. Potentially just have a look at the factory. And I'm just going to go to OTT1 for now. Maybe a little bit less. There. I think the noise is too loud. I'm going to bring it down. I do like a little bit of noise. Of course I could filter this, but I quite like it as it is. Potentially, like, let's just filter the noise because it's just getting to me a little bit. And give it some tonality. This is another thing as well, right? I can go to the filters. Let's maybe add the MS ladder. Yeah, let's also filter the wavetable. There. That's cool because now you can really hear the movement in the spectral, right? I still think the noise is too loud. Just gonna bring it down even more. That's better, right? And let's not forget, go to the effects. This has been multi-band, right? OTT, just to kind of make it larger than life. I would say add a little bit of reverb. Tend to go for the whole. Sounds very nice, so I'm just gonna use that and just bring the mix. A little bit more decay. There you go. And you can add potentially a little bit of compression as a limiter. Limit it to 0 dB. So it catches the peaks. There you go. Maybe less reverb. It definitely adds a lot of flavor. And of course, if you wanted, you could use a utility at the end of the chain. Maybe actually move it before. And then just potentially add mono bass, and then add a little bit of stereo width, and then now you can hear it in context with the loop, right? There you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another way that we can create some really cool textures. So again, I'm going to go to the Spectral one and just bring these factory ones, and I'm going to go to the noises, And I'm going to go to organics, because I think there's actually, this one's the SOR. There's some atmospheric kind of sounds there, which are really nice. I'm going to start with those. This is, again, for a kind of like sound effect, it's just easier to just draw like a long note rather than playing it yourself, right? That's the sound over here at the moment. Right, let me just hear that one. Not very exciting. Right. Obviously that sound is quite insane, but let's just let's take this and make it manual. Not really feeling that one. Let's go into the next one. There you go. There you go. These atmospheric sounds are better. You can hear it's got a nice kind of a stereo effect. But this is one thing I really like doing on the Spectral, which is the spread. So it basically spreads all the frequencies up or down, so you kind of like compress them and expands them, and you can see it kind of keeps the root. It kind of keeps it in place, which is really interesting. So it still keeps the tonality there. Look. And you can get some really awesome sound effects like that. So look, one thing that we could do is this. We just get it so the spread starts from nothing and it increases with the envelope. And again, I'm going to make it so it takes a little bit of time. There you go, right? So let's speed it up a bit more. Almost like a riser kind of sound, right? It's the same kind of principle. Again, with this, we can explore different things. Like if we go to the Spectral here, I could add more sub harmonics. So we get more kind of like low end rumble. That sounds nice. I really like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go to, it doesn't matter which LFO for now, I'm going to go to LFO1. So this is going to control the basically the volume. Right, that was maybe too high, but it's okay. We can still sort of play around with it in a minute. So what's happening is that the LFO is controlling the level here to kind of create a little bit of like an engine kind of sound. And then what we want to do is we want to speed up this rate. I'm going to set that so it's in hertz. And we want this to be controlled by envelope 2 as well, potentially. So let's just go like this. Right, so I don't want it to go so low. It's a bit too much. Let's just bring it down like that. Right, there we go. And of course, if we wanted to add a different kind of character, we can play with different sounds, of course. Let's try this one. So that's quite cool. Right, that's another one. Oh. So this is exploratory, right? You just have to find the one you like the most. No, that's not interesting. I like that, and sometimes exploring different positions gives you different sounds, right? Yeah, you can see the creative possibilities within this Spectral, and of course, again, you can just copy this and then add another layer, right? So you can be like, okay, cool, so copy with mods, and then paste it on Oscillator 2, and then you can change the waveform to a different one, and then maybe not that one. No. There you go, right? So you get the idea. Amazing. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick tutorial. Well, it wasn't quick, but you know, I just wanted to prove some concepts, because I do find that Serum has got a lot of capabilities, but I looked on YouTube and I haven't really seen that many videos in regards to the particular engines within Serum, especially this one that we were looking at today, right? The Spectral engine, especially for sound design and slightly more avant-garde kind of sounds. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you can subscribe, that would be great. Give us a like. And of course, if you want to get one-to-ones with myself, or you want me to teach you, you can find links in the comments section. So yeah, let's get in touch, and we'll see you on the next one.